Today from the global lane, Christians in Nigeria, the most persecuted in the world. More than threats of military action may be needed to protect them.
The first and key thing is for the United States to exercise all of its diplomatic might where the Trump administration has done so.
Trump welcomes a former terrorist to the Oval Office. Syria's religious minorities feel betrayed.
This welcoming that al-sharaa is benefiting from has encouraged his actions and his behaviors and the lack thereof in Syria.
As New York City prepares for its first Muslim mayor, political Islamists set their sights on a Michigan U.S. Senate candidate and advancing Islam in Texas.
There's a very real concern about the encroachment of Islam and really the infiltration of Islamists into American government.
And 50 years since the gales of November came early. And it's all right here on the global lane. Rallying the world's Catholics to speak out and help persecuted Christians in Nigeria. This week, Catholic thinkers and faith advocates from around the world gather at the Congress of Catholics and Public Life in Madrid, Spain. The focus and theme of the Congress is hope. Do Nigerian Christians have greater hope for a more peaceful and secure future in light of President Trump's warning regarding the government's indifference to terrorist attacks? Well, joining us from the Madrid conference is Kevin Roberts. He's president of the Heritage Foundation. Kevin, we're glad to have you with us all the way from Madrid, Spain. The theme of this Congress is hope. So just how hopeful are attendees that President Trump's warning to the Nigerian government will help protect Christians in Nigeria?
Well, attendees at this conference in Madrid are hopeful about life because of their faith in God, obviously. But I have to say that while there's cautious optimism about the situation improving in Nigeria because of President Trump's appropriate action and the attention that has brought, one of the problems that we're facing that tempers that optimism, to be honest with you, Gary, is the Nigerian government continues to be a problem as it relates to protecting people of faith, especially in this case, Christians, and in some cases, even more moderate Muslims who are often the target of Boko Haram. So I guess you could sum it up to say, number one, we're hopeful in a general sense because of great leadership by President Trump. Number two, realistic about the obstacles that are being faced by Christians in Nigeria, especially the government and ongoing economic problems that aggravate these religious tensions. But number three, I think what that means is that President Trump is on the right track in continuing the great foundation he laid in his first term to protect religious liberty for everyone in the world. I can tell you that attendees at the conference, and certainly all of us at Heritage, are zealously working toward that goal.
The statistics are alarming. Reportedly, more than 7,000 Christians already have been murdered this year. Since 2009, as many as 100,000 have been killed, 20,000 churches and religious institutions burned and destroyed, tens of thousands of people displaced. So what can be done short of a U.S. military response?
Well, I think what we have to be focused on is making sure that the world accepts that the facts that you just mentioned and that we mentioned in a major study we released a few days ago at Heritage are just that. They are facts. Just this year alone, 7,000 Christians have been killed by Boko Haram and their successor sort of collaborator, Islamic State West African province. And it isn't just that these two groups want to establish a Muslim state in Nigeria. It's that they see every single Christian as standing in the way. And so, short of U.S. military intervention, we're very hopeful that President Trump's public awareness pressure, in addition to reprising some of the great policies he initiated in his first term on religious liberty, will help. But the first and key thing is for the United States to exercise all of its diplomatic might where the Trump administration has done so.
Pope Leo has spoken out against the violence there and also in other countries, calling persecution a, quote, wound in the heart of the church. He believes humanitarian corridors for displaced Christians must be set up and international legal and policy measures put in place to protect religious minorities. So what else needs to be done?
Well, I think humanitarian aid is an important second step in addition to the diplomatic pressure and intervention. In fact, I was just mentioning to some other friends on this Heritage trip to Portugal and Spain about the ridiculous example of USAID, which of course just took the leftist wokeism and funneled billions of American taxpayer dollars as an imposition on the cultures around the world. What we need to be doing with that money, and I applaud the administration for doing this, is having real humanitarian aid.
And Kevin, I know you are a political analyst and you work extensively on public policy issues. However, there is a spiritual element here. I worked for years reporting on persecution and serving the persecuted church worldwide. While Christians don't welcome persecution or turn a blind eye to it, we know God uses it to grow the church. Tertullian said, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church." So this Madrid Congress focuses on hope. That's the hope, is it not?
It sure is. I'm smiling on a very difficult topic because you and I know, and your audience knows because of our faith. While I don't think any of us want to wake up and be a martyr, we know that if we were called to that in a real sense, that is an example of God's love, but it's been the blood of the martyrs that have grown the church over 2 millennia. And if we can take any solace in this, obviously we don't question God's will. It's that those of us who are not being persecuted but can feel this with our brothers and sisters, that if we can do our job, whether we're in media or in politics or in ministry, to focus on them, to spread the gospel, that in fact, that's what God wants us to do. And so that's going to be our focus, not just at this conference, but as we come out of the conference. And I'll sum up by telling you that while Heritage, as you know, is a non-sectarian organization, we are animated very deeply by the Judeo-Christian roots of almost all of our colleagues. And I think that's what allows us to have the courage as an institution and a number of individuals to be very courageous, very outspoken on making sure that we're doing our part to eliminate religious liberty. We stand by the president and anyone who wants to end violations of that around the world.
Okay, from Madrid, Spain, Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, thank you for taking the time to share your insights with us.
Perfect. Thanks, man.
A historic meeting in Washington as President Trump became the first president in nearly 80 years to meet with the head of state of Syria at the White House. Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa, once a member of al-Qaeda and the founder of the militant Islamic group al-Nusra, visited Washington just days after the United Nations Security Council joined the United States in lifting sanctions against the Syrian president. Al-Sharaa is now looking for help securing government control over the country and rebuilding Syria. But what about securing the rights of the nation's religious minorities? Joining us to share some thoughts is Syrian-American Christian from Aleppo, Yale student Hekmat Abu Khater. Okay, Hekmat, so no one has elected Ahmed al-Sharaa president. He was self-appointed. Trump and Middle East leaders love this guy. So how much support does he have with the people of Syria?
So as of now, I would say the majority of the Sunni community outside of the cities supports him full-heartedly because they finally see their man in power. They see the last 50 years, the 5 decades of the Assad dynasty rule by father and son as essentially minoritarian rule by a tough military commander, Assad, the father and the son. And now finally they can say that they have someone who belongs to their same sect, the sect of the majority, a Sunni Muslim in power. But as you've alluded to, the minorities are holding their breath, rather. The Christian minorities strewn about the different cities of Syria are very worried about their security and their prospects in the country. The Kurds are worried about a manifestation of a specific type of Sunni political Islam that could, in a way, see them as heretics. Druze, the same situation. In the south, we saw what happened to their community in June and July, and they're worried about resurgence of such sectarian-based violence. And the Alawites, of course, we saw what happened in March, and they are very much worried about the future prospects of their 4 million strong community in the Alawite coast.
What's the likelihood that a new Syrian constitution will impose Sharia law on the people?
So in a way, it's already there and not. Beforehand, under the Assad regime, the constitution started off by essentially enlisting Islamic jurisprudence as one of the sources of the sources of the jurisprudence in Syria, the sources of influence of the jurisprudence and the legal system in Syria. Now, in this new interim constitution that came out 2 months ago, the Islamic jurisprudence, which is Sharia, is now the main source of inspiration for law in Syria. And just to add to a point you alluded to here, he essentially installed himself as president, and he just announced that the elections are branded as this huge democratic success. But in reality, when you look at the numbers, the way the elections were distributed is you have about 230 parliamentarians, members of parliament. Ahmed Shariah elects 70 MPs chosen unilaterally by him. And then he himself also elects an 11-member Supreme Committee. The Supreme Committee chooses 6,000 members of the Electoral College, out of which the other two-thirds of the parliament are chosen.
We know of the warnings that President Trump gave Nigeria about the unrestrained slaughter of Christians by terrorists there. He has positioned his administration as a defender of religious rights. So how about Syria? Many religious freedom advocates fear the president will emphasize development and investment over protecting religious minorities. So how concerned are you?
Because the sanctions were never targeted. There was no such thing as smart sanctions that were targeted purely on the Assad regime and the people in his immediate surrounding. No, the sanctions in Syria impoverished the everyday average people on the streets of Syria and really worsened their quality of life. So from that perspective, I think the Trump administration is taking the right decision to remove the sanctions. But what I would say is this full-hearted, open welcoming of the former al-Qaeda leader in Syria betrays his promises of putting the rights and the protection of Christians across the globe first. This welcoming that al-sharaa is benefiting from, that's not just Trump, but all the Western capitals, has been a tool, essentially, has encouraged his actions and his behaviors and the lack thereof in Syria. We saw what happened in the Alawite massacres, the 3-day consecutive pogroms that happened in the Alawite coast in March. And then we saw what happened in July with the Druze community in Soweto. But between these two events, these two pogroms in which thousands and thousands of sect minorities were butchered and massacres en masse, what happened between these two events? al-sharaa went to Paris, al-sharaa went to Berlin, went to Brussels, met with von der Leyen, met with Macron, met with all of the important leaders of the West, including Trump a couple of times. So this is the message that is being essentially put forward here, one of impunity, one of encouragement, like, listen, try and keep things under wraps. But if worst case scenario, another massacre happened, we will still welcome you into our capitals and welcome you into our feasts and banquets. So that is the betrayal here that I see from the Trump administration, that I'm not seeing any strings attached. I'm not seeing any pushback, any consideration of the horrors that have been happening for the last 11 months since this guy took power in Syria.
Okay, Hekmat Abu Qatar, thank you for joining us. God bless you. Islam ascending. 24 years after 9/11, a foreign-born Muslim will be sworn in as mayor of New York City. His election may certainly inspire more Muslims to enter politics. Will they work to advance secularism or Islam and Sharia law in American cities? Should non-Muslims be wary, or are they being Islamophobic? Joining us to share his thoughts is youth, religion, and culture expert Alex McFarland of the Alex McFarland Ministries. Alex, there are a lot of postings on social media about Islam in Texas. So tell us what's happening there and why should we be concerned?
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, there's a very real concern about the encroachment of Islam and really the infiltration of Islamists into American government. And look, this is not Islamophobia. It's not any sort of animus or bias. This is just realism. That, in fact, Jim Jordan has a bill where to serve in Congress, you would have to be a natural-born American citizen. I had a 3-hour conversation with one of the principals of the Council on American Islamic Relations. I assure you, Western leftists are very naive to think that they do not desire a cultural infiltration and the ultimate bringing down of America. And so it's just the preservation of the U.S. Constitution here.
Alex, we found this video on X, originally posted by Amy Meck of the Rare Foundation, a group pledged to raising awareness about assaults on freedom. And it's a video of Sheikh Uthman ibn Farouk. He's a San Diego-based imam.
So know this, that Islam will enter every house. Every house. Don't worry about the Islamophobes. They can yap all they want. Their children will be Muslim.
Rumors are circulating on social media that Sheikh Farouk is relocating to Texas to start new mosques, advance Islam and Sharia law in the Lone Star State. He says his goal is to spread faith, not domination. So how should Christians respond?
Well, do you know, Muslims are taught that they are at liberty to lie. It's the doctrine that they can lie for the cause of Islam. And when they say they're here to, quote, spread faith, what does that mean? Faith in what? But no, they are most certainly here to further weave Islam and Sharia concepts into American life to ultimately subjugate and bring down the great infidel. That's us. We're infidels. We're not Muslims. But here, I was in Texas interviewing some of the subs that are working on this big Islamic center. And they said that initially, some of the framers and electricians, they didn't want to work on it, but they were offered up to as much as 3 times the going rate to work and help build this Islamic center. And it is threatening the stabilization and the security of America.
The Texas state government did respond by banning Sharia law in Texas cities. 10 states have laws or constitutional amendments banning it. And that makes sense because you can't have 2 systems of government. Americans believe in British common law and jurisprudence, but we also believe in religious freedom. So is this an overreaction? Do these laws prevent Muslims from freely practicing their faith?
It is not an overreaction. It's very prudent. I would say they should go even farther. They should use eminent domain to take back that. Look, we cannot have jihadist terror cell incubators in American cities. And that's what these mosques and these centers amount to. They really do. If someone wants to believe in Allah, they're free to do that. But that is where it stops.
And it really comes down to assimilation, immigrants embracing American culture instead of setting up enclaves that resemble the country they've left. Farouk has called on young Muslims to flood social media with pro-Muslim posts to advance Islam in the USA. So how should Christians respond to that on social media and elsewhere?
Ultimately, the force that can hold at bay either the iron fist of Marxism or the iron sword of Sharia is Christianity. 2 years ago, the Atlantic.com had an article about the religion of peace. Very meticulous journalism. They said, look, the jihadists are the faithful Muslims. And it's really naive, when we say, oh, Islam is a religion of peace. And I know since 9/11, 25 years ago, we've just been kind of given that mantra endlessly. But the Atlantic.com said the moderate, westernized Muslims are really the backsliders. But here's my point. If you migrate to America, you must assimilate and you must become a patriotic, constitutional supporting America. And part of America, we also support Israel. And that is something no true Muslim can conscientiously do. And as a Christian, I pray for the salvation of the Islamic world, because that is really the ultimate hope, that these people would know the true Savior, the true God, the true Scripture, which is Christianity.
Okay, Alex McFarland, where can people catch your daily radio program and your TV show?
Well, thank you. All things alexmcfarland.com. We've also got a brand new book out on Bible prophecy with fresh research on AI, the Antichrist, the Middle East, 100 Bible questions on prophecy in the end times. It's available at Barnes & Noble and everywhere. And my tour schedule and all that we're doing, alexmcfarland.com.
Okay, thank you, Alex. God bless you.
God bless you, sir. Thank you.
This week in the U.S., the government shutdown and Veterans Day dominated the news. However, here's something you may have missed. The day before Veterans Day, November 10th, marked the 50th anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Yes, it's been 50 years since I, a young disc jockey working the evening shift at WKMF Radio in Flint, Michigan, announced the tragic news to the audience. It was around 8 p.m. when we received word that the 729-foot-long freighter, the Edmund Fitzgerald, had gone missing about 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point, Michigan. Confirmation came the next day. None of the 29 crew members survived. The ship had left port in Wisconsin bound for Toledo, carrying 26,000 tons of iron ore. Unfortunately, it was caught in a horrible storm on Lake Superior, with wind gusts exceeding 75 miles per hour and waves reaching more than 15 feet. Canadian folk singer Gordon Lightfoot immortalized this tragedy 6 months later with his song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. The record reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Later that night when his lights went out of sight, came the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
This year, family members and others gathered in cities around the Great Lakes to remember and honor those who perished. On each anniversary, a bell is rung 29 times, once for each mariner who lost their life.
Captain Ernest M. McSorley, Master.
This year, there was also a 30th ringing of the bell in memory of singer-songwriter Gordon Lightfoot, who passed away 2.5 years ago. His song helps us remember. Many of us know about the sinking of the Titanic, but it's equally important to teach younger generations about one of the greatest maritime tragedies in Great Lakes history. Why is it important? If nothing else, it reminds us to pray for the surviving family members of the 29 sailors lost in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, many of whom still suffer from loss and grief. Additionally, it reminds us to express gratitude for the mariners who face danger each day as they bring us shipments, products, and goods that are crucial for our daily lives. 50 years have passed. Folks, we still remember the gales of November come early. Well, that's it today from the Global Lane. Until next time, be blessed.